All right, what's up? Welcome. It's episode 2 of GranCast. Appreciate you guys coming through. We're short a couple members right now tonight. I am RCB. He is Zenosuke, Zen for short, and Blue, who is actually going to be multitasking tonight as Blue, because not only is he going to be doing the GranCast here, you're also playing in a BB Tag tournament as well, online tournament.
Yeah, I'm doing the PG Key to Evo.
Okay.
That would be fun to do both at the exact same time.
Everybody, please send Blue your energy.
Send Blue your energy.
Spirit bomb.
Exactly. Now, I will say, before we get into the discussions for tonight and everything, this is going to be a privilege, because everyone that's going to be watching this GranCast is also going to see a numerous amount of Blue faces that I'm going to be really looking forward to as far as when he starts playing and everything. So it's going to be amazing as far as, yeah, stay tuned for that. So unfortunately, Sentenchi isn't going to be able to make it with us tonight. He has some stuff going on that he's trying to take care of, so he won't be able to attend tonight. And Sol, I'm expecting that he'll probably join us a little later in the program. I think he's also participating in the BB Tag stuff that's taking place tonight as well. But we do appreciate you guys coming through as always. Again, this is a GranCast, which is a video cast that's going to be kind of highlighting everything with Granblue Fantasy Versus. A little bit of Granblue Fantasy here and there too. I know there's a big event going on with Code Geass that's taking place right now with that. So some things along those lines. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into some of the discussion points for tonight. And one of the things I wanted to talk about with you guys and kind of get your thoughts on this. And is this like not just like reviewing kind of like what we discussed last week as far as what took place with GranCast, but also just overall in general of the overall perception of what we've seen thus far with Granblue Fantasy Versus, right? It seems like overall the game itself, off the beta and everything, has been accepted pretty positively from everyone that played it. Is that safe to say?
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my questions along Granblue Fantasy Versus, as we, will eventually sooner, hopefully sooner, rather than later, get more information regarding the game. Of course, Anime Expo is right around the corner. We all know that's going to be on the stage over there. Evo being less than 2 months away now, with what's going to be taking place with that, and that's when we're expecting to have like the release date announcement, all that stuff. I guess my question, as we look at the game and kind of like moving forward with it, is how will this game impact, or what impression will it leave, not just with like the FGC, for example, right? And of course, we're basically mainly FGC members, but we also do play the mobile game as well. Like, what type of impression and impact will this game have as it does eventually get released, as eventually when it does, become something that develops over time and everything? What type of impression will it have in the FGC and gaming? Because it has been received so popular and positive from the beta and everything. Is that good? Is that bad? Like, there's just a ton of things I've been thinking about with this game. And Blue, I'll start with you on this, because you said when I posed the question to you guys earlier in the week about this, you said you had some immediate thoughts. So I'll let you start as far as like what you think with this game as far as like its release and what type of impact it could have.
Okay, so yes. So when you did ask the question, I immediately had an answer. And that answer is, this feels very, very similar to a game that we had not too long ago, something we like to call Dragon Ball Fighters.
Okay.
Now, at the beginning of Dragon Ball Fighters, everybody had played the beta. They thought it was really interesting. It was really dramatic. And even though, but that was mostly because of the Dragon Ball name. Everybody kind of knew the characters. Everybody knew like the big moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Granblue Fantasy or Granblue Fantasy Versus, it is a completely different field. A lot of players doesn't know what the game is, probably doesn't never played the mobile game, and there is a lot of times on Twitter where people did not even know the characters that they were playing, and most of them learned off of either fan art or someone like me who looked up the character or learned about the character so much that I can give people a brief summary. So it was a very different kind of feel.
Mm.
That being said, the fact that a majority of people were able to have a positive response about the game is a good sign. People are more accepting of these kind of games. We said this many times last week. It's been a while since we had a true 1 versus 1 fighter, and this game definitely hits that niche really, really well. My concern is what will happen to the players that isn't just playing it for the people that's playing it because it's a new game, right?
Mm.
Because Dragon Ball FighterZ, while it's super big, I would say after CEO Evo, which was June, August time, the game started dwindling just a little bit.
Mm.
And can you guys agree with me on that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, it's been on a steady decline.
For a game that not a lot of people know, I wonder if that's going to be the case.
Mm.
I think because at this point, Dragon Ball FighterZ is now defined as the anime title. It's not the big game anymore. It's not as big of a focus on fighting game tournament that it was just a year ago. It's just one of the major anime fighting games that we still cover.
Mm.
And I have a sad feeling that that will be the default for Granblue Fantasy Versus. It will just be the biggest anime fighting game in that moment. How long that is it last in that title, I'm not sure. But that is the impression that I have going forward.
So
Interesting.
yeah, it's an interesting take you had there. So I'm guessing like because of some of the unfamiliarity with, the characters and things along those lines, that's been kind of a concern for you, especially if people don't play the actual MOBA game.
Right.
That's interesting.
Because I love Granblue Fantasy, but I do think the IPs and the characters do mean something for games.
Mhm.
Like, think about some of the more recent anime fighting games. Under Night and Birth, even though that made the Evo spot, it took them a total of 5 years for them to get that recognition that people were longing for.
Mhm.
Persona 4 Arena, a game that more people thought it was interesting, got it their first year. Guilty Gear, a big franchise for the American scene, got it their first year. Blaze Blue, it did not make it. BBCT did not make it to Evo. Their first year. It took them to Continuum Sif for them to finally get on the Evo stage.
That's interesting.
So the IP, I think, is important. So while I think Granblue Fantasy Versus will be, of course, an Evo game when it comes out, I don't know how long its longevity is due to the franchise.
I have a little bit of a counter take to that when we do get into that, because you brought up some interesting comparisons there, but there's some things that I kind of thought about of what you said, but I do want to get Zen's input on this before I kind of share my thoughts. So Zen, I know, like I said, you know the franchise as well because of the mobile game that you play and everything, and I know you spoke really highly with your experience with the beta last week in the first episode that we did. So I guess it's kind of like, kind of share what you think this game could potentially be moving forward with like the, within the FGC and just gaming in general.
So I think Blue is pretty spot on with some of his thoughts. Brand recognition is incredibly important, and that did play a huge effect of like why Dragon Ball was so huge when it came out. So I can understand the sort of position you take where it's like we're not sure how it's gonna really like grow or proceed. But my biggest counter to that is one, this game is like way simpler than Dragon Ball, so it can like hold people's attentions for a lot longer. Dragon Ball is really, really intimidating after a certain point, and it was really hard for people to kind of keep up with that. And I really feel like Granblue being a very simple game, um, will just keep people's attention like a lot longer. And also we have side games. Like so side games knows how to run like a tour, for example, right? So like side games money injected into this, I can see this lasting for a pretty long time. I can see it staying for a while. Whether or not it'll become like the main game in terms of well, actually I can kind of see it becoming like the main number one game like Dragon Ball was, simply because of the backing that it has from side games. But no, I think the game is in a good spot. I think it was smart of them to do the open, well, closed slash open beta that they really did because everybody got into it. So people that weren't familiar with Granblue was able to get a chance to try it, so they can get firsthand experience about it and make them more interested in the franchise. So they're like, hey, Fairy's really cool. Oh, hey, Catalina's really cool. And then like that word of mouth has been really growing, and I can see that just sort of infect in the same way that it took Unist 5 years to get to where it is now. I see that happening at a much more accelerated rate for Granblue just because of how positive the game's reception has been and because of the backing of the game. So I sort of feel like this game is in like a very, very good position going forward to being at least an evil mainstay for the next couple of years and even possibly taking that number one spot.
You hit on the one thing I was going to bring up, and that was the support of side games and how involved they have been. I mean, really, just look at what they've done with Shadowverse, right? As far as where they're going with that. And they have flat out said that they want this to be an esports mainstay. And I think, honestly, that might be like the biggest difference when it comes to looking at, where this game is going to be going, is the fact that it's going to have a ton of support, especially at the front set. You know what I mean? Now, with that said, I think Sol just joined us here, so gotta fix some of the cameras here. But Sol, what's up, buddy?
Hey man, what's up?
Had to run a little bit late, huh?
Look, man, the weather down here in Florida has been so horrific.
It really has.
It has it.
I was coming from 10 minutes from my house, and it took 45 minutes. That's how bad it was.
Oof. Yeah,
I've had
that's.
those days. I know how that is.
Yeah, that's kind of oof. Yeah, can imagine that. So, all right, well, let me do this real quick. I'm just gonna readjust a couple things here, and then we'll get this going here. But so I'll let you kind of speak on this a little bit. We were basically discussing, one of the things that we were looking at as far as like this game and its impact of what it's doing in the future and everything. So I just kind of wanted to, get your thoughts as far as, what type of future this game has as far as, what type of impact it can have along with the FGC and just gaming in general.
Well, for the most part, seeing as Granblue Fantasy is from Side Games and it's a mobile game from the first part, Side Games has always been a massive supporter of their own series, of their own games. So, I think in terms of longevity, I think the game has a pretty long lifespan at the very least. In terms of support, I think the game is going to garner a lot of attention, a lot of support, especially from the community, mainly because Granblue Fantasy has been a thing for a couple years now, and to this day, there's still over 2 million players for Granblue. And what I think would kind of change with the FGC is ultimately, I feel people are gonna have to adapt more. People are gonna have to learn to accept the fact that some companies and some developers may want to do things a little bit different. So like one of the first things that they mentioned is that they wanted to make the game very simplistic for beginners, to make it more accessible, emphasis on accessible. So for the most part, I think that people are gonna have to accept the fact that some developers that want to follow suit have to see that accessibility is gonna have to be a major role, because they might want new people to come in, they may want old players to come back in, things like that. So if they make a game that allows for easy inputs, basically the way Granblue is, people are gonna have to learn to accept that some other developers may follow suit. Like, smart combos have always been a thing, but with the way that Granblue is doing it, either smart combos, but the game is not combo oriented, it's more neutral and footsies based. So if this game reaches kind of like a peak that garners a whole bunch of attention, especially from developers, from supporters, and has that long life, I feel like a lot of other future fighting games may follow suit as well.
I mean, it's a trend that we're kind of already seeing, honestly. Like, as far as, like you said, smart steer combos, or even just like one button specials has been a thing for a little while now too. So it's a course that we're already on, you know.
Yeah.
And so was right. Like, Granblue Fantasy right now has a huge following. Like, he was talking about the anniversary and how many players. Like, literally at the beginning of the year, they reached their 5-year anniversary. Literally just this week, like literally happening right now as we speak, they're doing their 24 million player celebration. So it does have a following.
Exactly. Still active following at that.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too when you look at those numbers just off the mobile game alone, with like how many players there are with that. So, and Sol, thank you for the host. Greatly appreciate that, sir. But yeah, it's interesting when you look at that, especially with that type of following, like you guys were mentioning with the mobile game and everything. But I think, like I said, I think Zen basically hit it on the head when he brought up the fact that this game's going to have a ton of support with side games itself. You know, with the organizational and financial backing of everything that's taking place here. And then here we go. We'll just refix this. There you guys are. You guys are back now. So, but yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see with that. And I think for the immediate, and Blue hosting as well. Thank you, sir. I think with everything that's taken place, like for the immediate, I think there's going to be a ton of support that we're going to be seeing with this game when it does first drop. And the fact that it's got a very, easy, I wouldn't say easy, but a very beginner-friendly entry level to the game. And that a lot of the stuff with the game is very, fun. It's going to, appeal to a lot of those players that just, don't want to have the overbearing mechanics. Like, say, DBFZ, we brought that up earlier, and like how that game can be very oppressive and it can be very hard to get a gauge on things, especially with how fast it moves. Same thing with BB Tag. The combo structure and everything with BB Tag, it's simple in its regard, but the mechanics are what makes that stand out. And sometimes even for players that are trying to get into it, those mechanics can be overwhelming for some people. One of our locals was talking about this, Rev, when we were doing a session over at Zen's place Saturday. He said that was the one thing that was throwing him off in BB Tag, was that the mechanics and everything just overwhelmed him. He could do the combos, he can do basic stuff, but when you applied everything else on top of that, and especially with how fast that game can go, it can overwhelm people. I don't think Granblue Fantasy Versus is going to have that overwhelming factor because it's at a pace that a lot of people can get acclimated with pretty quickly when it comes to that. So I think it's going to be interesting with that. Now, speaking of mechanics, I think it's a pretty good segue into kind of our next discussion point. But SKD, who is one of the best anime players in the world, mainly known for what he's been able to do with BlazBlue Central Fiction, he put out a couple interesting videos in regards to Granblue's mechanics. And Sol, you kind of shared that a little bit with us as well for people to check out and everything. And the way he was explaining how this game basically applied its mechanics compared to the execution of the mechanics. I think I'm paraphrasing what he said with this and everything. But he had some interesting takes with the mechanics and everything, and he said that's what it kind of seemed like. That's what drew him about the game was the application of the mechanics in this game.
Yeah. So like for the way he explained it was, for the most part, side games wanted to focus on application more than mechanics of a game, simply due to the fact that yes, you can make it simplistic. Yes, you can make it any kind of way that you want. But at the end of the day, if you make the applications for the game that much more accessible and that much more easier to understand, it will be more fleshed out easier, and people will be able to understand it more. So with the way that side games and Arxis created the game would be that they want to focus primarily on the fact of low level barrier understanding. So they made basically the button controls very simplistic to understand. Everything was basically put into thought primarily with beginners and newcomers in mind. So with that, they delved in a little bit deeper. So yeah, the first and primary thing they wanted to focus on is beginners and have more people come into the game with basically the easiest game that we have to this day. But at the same time, they incorporated a little bit more in-depth mechanic to allow more veteran and experienced players to kind of make the games shine a little bit more. So yeah, we do have that beginner, the beginner ease of access, but at the same time, there is in its own space an area where it allow us veteran players to kind of have more of an in-depth and more detailed access of the game, which is really cool because the way that it works is it's just different cooldown systems. Yeah, we have the same exact buttons. Yeah, we have the same inputs. But if we just change one or two buttons, it actually gives more experienced players that know basic FGC like button inputs. It'll give us a lower cooldown. It'll give us faster inputs, things like that. So the way they kind of mesh everything together, that'll primarily focus on like beginner and ease of access, with the fact that they mix it up with veteran experiences, makes more of a it sounds repetitive, but they basically make it the easiest to understand game. And the more that you play the game, the more that you'll be able to find out that hey, the button inputs are not as they're not as complicated. It's just one motion and then two different buttons, or one button depending on what you want to do, the EX variation or not. So the way that it's that simplistic, and the way we've been able to just have ease of access and veteran gameplay in one huge game like this is going to be very, very interesting, especially when we come into like a couple months into the game where you have new people coming in and still being extremely strong versus veteran players that have been playing since the beta, or newcomers that have been playing since the beta. And at this point, I feel like it's going to be equal footing for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And I know, Zen, you mentioned you were raving about the mechanics last week when it came to the way they're being applied here in Granblue. And I think, Sol, you summarized everything that SKD said in those videos pretty good, pretty accurately. But it is interesting because you remember when we were getting the very first info, right? And again, everyone, always wraps their head around the word simple. If it's like the developers say, or we're making some aspects of this game simpler to get into and everything, and how people view that as being a terrible thing. But then, we get the other news or, the other info saying like, well, there's going to be some simpler things, but it's also going to cater to the veterans very well. And we found out that like, hey, if you do the traditional inputs, things along those lines, you'll have quicker cooldown on your specials, things along those lines. It felt like everything was balanced out really well. And I think, in that regard, that will also, because of that, I think it will, make, or I shouldn't say make, but it will maybe interest the newer players that would get into a game like this to maybe learn those traditional inputs and learn those traditional things, because there is some better payoff with some of those aspects of this games. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely like some more encouragement towards newer players to learn some more traditional inputs and stuff like that, and to sort of like carry on onto that idea of like a simple game and how they're making it a little more complex. For like veteran players, you look at sort of the other mechanics in play outside of the inputs, like the dodging and the rolling mechanic. So it's kind of like, you know, in this game when you run, you can't block, but you can cancel into a spot dodge, right? So then it's like little things like that that gives, it's like those little tiny things make us veteran players start thinking about the game like a different way than like some other people coming in. That gives us some more kind of food for thought and how we can play mind games with each other in terms of like neutral and stuff like that. And like as Sol was saying, you know, we might get to a point where like this game can teach basic things such as just fundamentals in general. So like they don't have to worry about, like newer players don't have to worry about inputs that much, so they can focus on like, okay, what are my normals? How do I play from what ranges here or there? Like how do I play this intricate sort of ground game without having to worry about, oh, I have to do this DP input or blah 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 that they can't really process yet, you know? It's cool how they found a really good balance so far, and even just it's cool how they found this balance in like a first test, right? Like they just came out and it's like, oh, your game's already good. We don't really have to like add much to it.
Right. Yeah. And think like the other thing that we brought up, you know, last week with it, I know like we brought up like our own different preferences of like some things that we would like to see adjusted, but in essentially, I mean, it was all just, you know, basic, like just personal preference. I think overall as a whole, it just, you know, everything just felt clean. Everything just felt like it was, you know, there really wasn't anything to really nitpick about. Now, with that said, it's only been around for, we only had a few days to access it.
Yeah.
So, like, there really wasn't a lot of time to be able to, you know, kind of get, you know, to really dig into it. And I know, like, training mode's a big thing, too.
There wasn't anything on the surface that was offensive, you know?
Right, yeah. So, I think we lost Sol for a minute. Yeah, so we'll, let's... Nope, there he is. He's back now. So, apologize. Yeah, apologize for some of the technical issues. We'll get those squared away. But, Blue, so I know, like you said, you had some concerns with some of the things that you were looking at and everything.
Yeah.
But do you think, you know, SKD was kind of right in the way he explained everything as far as like how the mechanics and everything would work?
Oh yeah. You guys pretty much touched on everything I was going to talk about the mechanics. The mechanics were defined as a way for experienced players to play just the game and not feel restricted, but also in a way where a new player doesn't feel intimidated to try it out. One of my biggest things, because I run a video game club at my college, is trying to show new people new fighting games, and the first thing they think is, how do I play this? I don't know anything, right? When I can tell them that it's just simply just pressing an input, now they have a idea of what to do, and then they can work off of that. One of the biggest things, and then I can work that into learning more, because I'm like, I could do something where I'm saying, hey, you know those special moves you're doing? Hey, if you do this input, you can do them, you'll get them back even faster. And then they'll learn and slowly develop those skills. So it's not just a game just for beginners. It's not a game just for experienced players. It's a way for players to connect in different types of ways. So you can be the best. You can be the best person to do an input, but that doesn't mean you're a better player.
Yeah.
There can be someone that just do simple inputs and just press, do R1 special moves all day, but they may have really good fundamentals, and you have to deal with it. So that's just interesting interaction that we're going to have with the game.
Yeah, and I think, Zen, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think Soft and Wet had said this on one of the games casts that you guys did regarding Granblue Fantasy Versus, where like he said like the only simple input he would do would be for DPs, for Dragon Punches. Everything else would be traditional, but he said the fact that he had a simple input for DPs for, you know, proper anti-airing, stuff like that, he had said that the way he was just going to apply that is, well, if I need to react quickly to anti-air, I'll just do the simple DP because even by then, even though it'll be a slower cooldown, by the time he has a chance to use it again, he'll have it back already. So it also kind of, like we were talking about earlier, it kind of encourages some players to go ahead and use some of those shortcuts to, refine their play a little bit when it comes to matches as well.
Yeah, it's definitely something that even like experienced players can lean on a little bit at a time, where it's just like, hey, here's this emergency situation. Maybe like I'm just a split 2 second with doing the motion, so I got this button right here, bam, I hit it. And like you said, like if the DP hits, by the time he needs it again, it comes back. So it's a tool not just for beginners, but like experienced players can use it too. I thought it was genius.
Which, yeah, I was gonna say when he said that, I was just like, oh wow, I never actually thought about that. I was like, yeah, this is crazy. When it came, just the like different ideas of the meta and how it can be applied. So
I want to expand on Blue's point a little bit though,
Yeah,
as far
sure.
as like introducing new players. So like like I run the anime scene as far as North Florida goes in Jacksonville, and it's like whenever we get new players and I try to introduce them to like Guilty Gear, for example, it's always really it's always tough explaining that game, because then you got to think about, okay, I got to teach you how to do like FD breaks, I got to teach you how to do this, how to do that, how to do that. Like it's a really complex game. Same thing if you try to teach like Blaze Blue, or you try to teach like Cross Tag, where it's so fast and it's intimidating, and a lot of people don't stick it out. They'll come by the sessions like once or twice, and then I'll never see them again. And it's just like, man, they had potential, but like the mechanics were just so overwhelming for them that they couldn't grasp it.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to this game to be able to just sit down with people and be like, okay, we can explain the basics of this, and I can teach how to play a fighting game rather than like overflowing your brain with like so many mechanics,
Right, and I think that I mean, trust me, I was there once. What, 4 or 5 years ago, when I was first learning gear, like when
it took you a long time.
Dude, you have no idea. And I was, I played Eno too, so I was already playing like a pretty complex character there. But that's kind of the point, and I think that's kind of the same thing I brought up with one of our guys that when we were discussing that, and how he is actually looking forward to Granblue because of that fact that it's a game he can understand a lot better than a game like BB Tag, for example. And we all play BB Tag as well. In fact, I think Blue's going to be playing a match here shortly that we'll be watching the tournament that he's going on.
It's the first match. Here we go.
Oh, you're actually getting ready to play a tournament match now?
Yep.
No.
By the way, remember that Adriel player I was talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
All right. Well, good luck.
Oh, good luck. Good luck. We'll see how Blue does here. But so you're now you're based in South Florida, and everything. I'm curious how much of your scene tried out the game when the beta dropped?
I'll be honest with you. So South Florida, when it comes to FGC, primarily South Florida is Smash, Dragon Ball, Tekken, Street Fighter. So not many people bothered with the game. There are a few, especially for the most part, they're all Marvel players. So we have Shazib. We also have Yomar, who goes by Neo Karsh. We had a few others. We had Justin Dunbar, who goes by SFL Soap. We have a few others. They all really enjoyed the game. They're really looking forward to the game. A lot of the thing is, when it comes to South Florida, a lot of us play primarily Marvel, so we all are in a small group. We all play together. So a lot of us have different play styles. Yomar is primarily footsies and neutral base. Yeah, he doesn't really play as much as he used to anymore, but it doesn't matter what game he plays. He will always be way above average because he brings in his neutrals and footsies from the years of experience.
Right.
Then we have Shazib, who's always playing zoner characters, always playing very methodical, very slow paced. And then we have Soap, who's always a very aggressive player. So the thing is, we were all playing different characters. Shazib was playing Fairy, Yomar was playing Gran, I was playing Luane. So you can see where the different play styles clash and mix up. So we didn't have a chance to all play together because during that time we all had our own separate things and we were never able to play and get on at the same time. So I had never got to fight them with the game. I did manage to fight my boyfriend every now and then whenever he was home. We would just connect our two PS4s and we just play together. But he would play Catalina because he likes the fact that she has DPs, she has different motions, and she's very similar to some characters that he plays. So overall, South Florida, I think for the most part, South Florida is going to be basically playing Fairy and Catalina for the most part because of the way that they're so similar to the characters everybody plays. I'm probably gonna be the only person in South Florida that plays Loane, thank God.
Now, with that said, though, that also depends on the rest of the cast that gets revealed too, and we see what what other characters do come out. That's interesting though, because that's kind of like I'm curious to see like how some of the other scenes here, especially here in the Southeast, because I do feel that we have really, really strong scenes down here, both in Florida and also in, Georgia as well, that's where Blue's from. So I think it's going to be interesting to see just how the Southeast will kind of adapt to this game and everything as well. I think Blue is still playing his tournament match, so I don't want to. He is focused. Yep, yeah, he gave the thumbs up. So we'll wait till he gets back from playing his tournament match. But
I'm here. You want to add something real quick? I lost my.
Oh no, no.
It begins.
Yeah. Well, no. I guess my question to you is, it was kind of similar to what we just asked Sol, but your how your scene in Georgia kind of took to the beta and everything.
For Southeast, my college area, only one person got into the beta, so that was it is what it is.
Yeah.
But for Atlanta, everybody's super into it, the game.
Really? Okay, that's good.
Petro East Side, Fame 96, Natural Noodles. There's some more names I can think of off the top of my head. Are super into the game. They're looking more forward to it. And especially with the fact that Granblue or Side Games is looking to have more support, and that we have two of the biggest anime conventions here in Georgia, which is MomoCon and then Anime Week in Atlanta. That is more for them to really show their stuff, because as of right now, there is 0 sponsored players here in Georgia. So they're thinking about this game probably being their jumping point.
Could be their entry point to get into that type of realm.
Yep.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I totally see that happening.
That's fair too. And yeah, you're right about Atlanta hosting some of those bigger type of conventions that we could, see some more stuff there. At least, maybe at least on the stage or stuff like that, as far as, maybe some demos or stuff like that we could see. So that'll be interesting to see. I'll have to keep an eye on that. Might have to take a trip up to Atlanta for one of those weekends, then maybe.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm like I said. I think it does have a very good future. I think it is going to make a really strong impression on the scene, at least for the immediate. Obviously, seeing what the future plans will be after the release with, DLC, if there's going to be expansion packs and things along those lines, that obviously is going to have a factor, with the longevity of the game in itself there. And it's, it's way too early to tell on that. And, you can make predictions and ideas, but that's all really they're going to be. But I think for the immediate, and I think for the most part, I think we're all in agreement that it's going to have a very strong impression out of the gate. I mean, it has already, just with the beta alone, with how positively it was received in that regard. But I think definitely in the intermediate, it's definitely going to have a very strong beginning. I mean, just remember how many people were in the beta at 5 a.m.?
Yeah. Every lobby was full.
Exactly. Every single lobby was full. So, I mean, there's people that are definitely anticipating it, and I think because of the fact that it was that well received is going to make it that much more interesting to see when it does eventually drop. Is there any concern, and so I'll start with you on this, is there any concern with the fact that it's been received so positively?
Yes. The thing that comes with games being received that open armed is the fact that at once the actual build, like the final build is released, once we actually get the game, if it's not what people think it was, and if it's not what people wanted, the game's gonna fall off very hard. Uh, we all know the stigma of, oh, I've been playing this game since, such and such year. I've been playing it for however long. I've known about the game since it was first released on, manga or mobile, whatever the hell. So the biggest problem that we have when it comes to it is that we've all been playing Granblue since it originally came out. So if people want to keep the ideology of, hopefully it's kind of like the mobile, or if it kind of has some kind of semblance to the animated short, things like that, I don't think people are going to stick with this game very long. We all know the stigma of anime games. We'll play because it's hype as hell. We'll play for such and such year or however long, and then it'll start dying down very fast, and the people who only play it competitively are going to be the only people left playing it. It's kind of like the same issue we have with BB Tag, where when the game first came out in beta, everybody was hyped for it. Everybody loved it. When the actual game came out, it was hype as hell. Every lobby was, full. Ranked was full. It was like that for almost, I would say, about 8-10 months. And then after that, it died down super fast. There was only one lobby that's always full. There's nobody that plays, like public lobbies or ranked, things like that. So since Granblue is is an anime game, we have to worry about the stigma of longevity with the game, especially when it comes to fighting game players, because we know a lot of us get bored very fast with the same thing over and over again. So depending on how they handle the game's marketing, depending on the way that they kind of give to the community, I think that'll basically show us what's going to happen with the game. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's an anime game. So we have to bear in mind that anime players also get bored very quickly. Save the Eunice community. But a lot of people drop anime games very, very fast, mainly because anime games don't stick with support from developers for very long. I don't think we have a problem with that since it's side games. Um, but we have to, like I said, keep in mind that since it's an anime game, uh, a lot of people drop it very fast. Hopefully, net play doesn't, die down. Hopefully, they manage to maintain that connectivity and the net play connections. So if that manages to either be the same or get better, I think the amount of player base and the lobbies that'll be full will remain the way it was for beta at the very least.
I kind of want to go back to one thing you said though, and you brought up the fact that it is a anime game.
Mm-hmm.
The art style and everything is an anime game, but I think when you look at it and compare it to the other traditional anime games or Air Dashers being another one, I think it is vastly different from that though.
Exactly, yeah. So that's what makes it different, because graphically, yes, it's an anime game, like you said. Mechanically and gameplay-wise, yes, it's a very traditional fighter, which kind of makes it a very precarious situation, because we had several people from different communities play the game. Like, when the beta came out, I was fighting Punk, and he was playing it like it was Street Fighter V, which he was more of like a balanced yet aggressive playstyle. He was playing Gran. And then I ran into Alucard from New York, who was playing Fairy, which he was playing it just like Street Fighter. So I think that the game, in terms of, you know, I want to say like having both communities, both sides of the FGC, traditional and anime, I think it'll allow the player base to flourish. It'll have more people from both sides playing the game, and bringing different playstyles to it. But the biggest problem that I see is that, like we get with other games, people want to play it like a specific way, like with other games. Like you have people that play like a Street Fighter, you have some people playing it like it's Kohime, and you have different people who are playing it like a like a basic anime fighter, which is literally rolling your face. So
Yeah. It's a good way to.
yeah, it's basically like the best way to put it. Like you
Yeah.
have slow and paced Street Fighter 5. You have slow but methodical Kohime, and then you have rolling face anime. So depending on how it is that they want to send out the game as its final build, I think that a lot of people from each community is gonna stick with the game to the very least, which is very exciting because the fact that we have different people from different genres and different scenes of the fighting game community, I think it's gonna allow more people to get into the game and kind of maintain that active online presence from the community itself.
Yeah, and I do think the online presence is going to be something that's key too. I think it's funny you bring that up with the online because, and I want to get Blues and Zen's thoughts on this as well. Online, I've always, especially for fighting games and the way the fighting game infrastructure is nowadays, I've dubbed online play as being like the necessary evil in that regard, right? It's to me, I think for the way these games have to survive outside of, having like a really strong ground roots, foundation, they have to have some form of functional net play to me. Under Night, for example, I enjoy that game a lot. And I've gone on record saying that as far as 2D fighting games are concerned, I think Under Night's the best game out there. However, I don't play it as much because the online is not good for Under Night. So to me, that's an automatic detractor of me playing that game as much as I enjoy it and as much as I like playing it, especially in offline settings. Online, I won't touch it because it's just that awful. I think the beta, was functional. And I brought up last week. I brought up the fact that it felt like, in a way, it felt like Guilty Gear's netcode to me. But is that a pretty safe assumption there too, where like online functionality has to be something that's got to be really important, especially for fighting games as far as their longevity?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Of course.
Because there's a lot of people that cannot be able to say that they don't have a scene.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so net play is one of their only options. So it is like one of the biggest things for any developer or any player to understand that net play is a way to connect to other players, but to a certain extent. There is times when we're, like, for example, BB Tag. I think all of us can say that online BB Tag is not the same as offline BB Tag.
Nope, definitely not.
So the fact that we have to make that statement shows how important that is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know, like, Zen, you've been on record saying too, like, for you to try to play, and using BB Tag as an example, since that was what was brought up, and that's, we all play BB Tag. You do not like playing Blake online because of the fact because of the fact that, like, to do her stuff online, it's much more difficult.
It's annoying, man. Like anytime you play a character that has like any sort of like at least a little bit of execution barrier to them, just like any sort of frame delay is just terrible. It just makes the experience like I don't even want to play anymore. Like I'd rather have a separate team that I play net play with, and that sucks because obviously you want to use that platform. You're supposed to use that platform to get better, right? You're supposed to use that to learn matchup knowledge and all that stuff. But it gets infuriating, especially when you can't like hit a simple combo. It's like, man, why? And then you get jaded.
Yep.
So it's super important to have like good netcode, and it baffles my mind because like there's some companies out there that have sort of cracked the code on that, right? So we've talked about, I think we talked about like Killer Instinct, for example, had like really
Killer Instinct to me to this day is still the best online
think,
experience I had.
MK11 right now has really good netcode from what I hear as well.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So it's like clearly Skullgirls also is pretty good, but it's like clearly this has been solved and companies aren't adopting that, and it just kind of blows my mind as to like why, Especially when it's still important to these games. Yeah,
and I'm curious to see what it does moving forward too, because all those games that you brought up, they use a specific, type of development when it comes to their online play. But it just seems like, the Japanese developers, they just use something completely different from what is used by other companies. Mainly because, they test in Japan, and it works great in Japan. So, but it's just, it's just been one of those deals where it's just like, you just hope one day that they adapt to the better options that are out there. But,
Right.
we'll see how it goes and anything. But, and it's not saying that Granblue's beta netcode or anything like that was terrible. Guilty Gears is decent. And that's kind of what I, compared it to. But you do hope that, they maybe look at that and use that data and maybe try to, implement some things as far as making that aspect as enjoyable as it possibly can be, especially with how important it is. So I'm kind of curious to see what does happen to that moving forward. I think we all said as well, we do anticipate that there will be another beta probably announced sometime soon. We'll probably get another crack at it. It might be an open beta too, so we'll see what happens to that.
I wouldn't put it past them to make another beta. One of Side Games representatives, Daigo, he really likes the game. So as we all know, he's been playing Granblue since day one of the mobile game. So I think that there's the high possibility of there actually being a second beta test, because as he stated, Granblue doesn't come out until winter. So I think they're gonna have to pump out another beta. At least another online access for the game.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up, right? With the winter release date, and maybe I looked into this a bit too much because I made a comment about this. So, the E3 trailer that they did, right, which was basically just a rehash of the very first trailer that was revealed, right? Just now with the English subtitles, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't see it on there. But I noticed they didn't have the 2019 window on that trailer at the end of it. Did they? And I just might have missed it?
I'm not sure, honestly.
Because I swore I didn't see it. And if I missed it, then I missed it, and so be it. But it was just kind of weird that, and again, I'm basing it off of that I didn't see it on there, but if it was that 2019 window, because the ending slide, they added the XC developer logo on there and added a few other things on there. But I didn't see, like I said, I might have missed it, but I didn't.
I'm looking at it now. It's not there, but on the official website and on the Side Games notification, it does say that it's still winter of 2019.
Okay, all right. So, but it was left off the trailer. And that's kind of what I was looking at. I was like, maybe I was looking into that too much, but I thought that was kind of weird that was still kind of left off, especially since it was just a rehash of that first trailer, and they just added the new info with Xseed and things along those lines.
Right.
I just kind of hope it doesn't get delayed, because as we all know, whenever especially anime games get delayed, it kind of creates this rift with people expecting the game and people hype for the game.
Right.
So it kind of dumbs down the hype. It kind of dumbs down the the craving for the game. So
it does.
Really hoping, yeah.
But I'll be honest, I would rather a game get delayed than not.
Yeah.
I would rather. It would be awful news, especially with how much hype this game has. But at the same time, Street Fighter V, I'm looking at you. Don't rush this project, because if it's a terrible release, then that's going to do much more damage than a delay.
It's hard to come back from that. And to sort of set expectations as far as dates and stuff, remember that winter 2019 can extend it to February of 2020. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it will come out before December, you know what I mean?
Right.
Exactly.
After the new year. So
yeah,
that's what's kind of worrisome, to be honest. The fact that it's winter 2020, it's like you said, it can go all the way up to February.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing with that is communication. If Side Games or ArcSys doesn't give kind of like that communication that we need as players and as consumers of their game, I feel like they're going to cause this issue where, yeah, we're very hyped for your game, but where's the information? It's kind of the same situation we had with BB Tag, where it had been a year and we hadn't heard anything about future DLC. We hadn't heard anything about other characters until that 1 year mark. We hadn't had anything for over 8 months prior to that.
Mhm.
No, nothing from them, no notice. So if Arxis and Cygames doesn't want that to happen to Granblue, I think they need to be very, very careful and very on point with their communication, at least with their player base, because, like I said, nobody wants that that issue where we have nothing, that we don't hear from them, and then like they just shit out information after God knows how long time.
Yeah.
But like I said, so like I feel like communication is going to be very, very key to this game having success at the very least.
Yeah.
If we do, then I honestly could see this game lasting quite a while.
It's interesting you brought that up, the communication aspect, right? Because it's interesting how these developers market their games and how their campaigns go and everything. And as someone that has worked in media and promotions, and that being my primary background, I've always been interested in seeing how these games and their promotion and their marketing is so vastly different as far as their philosophies are concerned and everything. Because I honestly think, as of now, for Granblue, and again, I enjoyed the beta and I enjoyed the game and everything, but I do think their marketing and their distribution of info and everything has been below average as far as releasing the info and things that people want to know, because there will be some very long gaps in between as far as like a new character that they just revealed or like some info dumps as far as things go. And then, like I said, just out of the blue, they drop a like, hey, we're doing this beta, and it's like, wait, what? Where did that come from? Games that have had really strong marketing campaigns, I'm not a fan of the new Mortal Kombat, but I thought their marketing plan and their marketing campaign and how they did things was top notch. I think they did a really good job with that. Another one that's more recent, that's coming out next week, Samurai Showdown has had a fantastic marketing campaign.
Yeah. Oh,
They have done amazing with that. Now, there are some things I do like with what Cygames has done with it. I think them, having Flo and Justin Wong and some of those guys drop like some character shorts for people to see and everything, and doing the code distributions and things like that. I think that was really cool in doing that, because
I might be like the 1% on that. I actually did not like that at all.
Okay, sure, why?
Well, primarily because of the fact that Cygames, their marketing and the way that they do their promotions and PR has always solely been through them and maybe a third party that they're doing collaborations with. The fact that they, as stupid as it sounds, and it's the way I feel like they kind of bought their promotion and they kind of bought out the marketing from those people, because from the get-go, neither of them have had anything ever to do with either Arxis or Cygames, nor have they been affiliated with them. And the fact that once the game came out and we had a little bit of information is when all of them started following suit and promoting Granblue. So it may sound a little rude, but I kind of feel like Granblue with Cygames and Arxis kind of sold out like their marketing to kind of since it's Cygames, they don't really have much of a presence with console stuff. They have it with mobiles, sure, but they wanted to kind of get like the top brand names of the FGC to kind of market and get their game and their name out there outside of Daigo and the few others that are sponsored by Cygames. So if you look at it from a different point of view, yeah, it does look like they sold their game out for people, sold their game to those top level people or top, personality of the FGC. It felt very, very extremely forced, very unnatural, and it literally made it so like if you don't follow those people, how in the world would you have known about them? This is what I mean by them selling their game and their marketing to those people. It felt like the most awkwardest, and it felt like it felt unwanted. Like, why would I want to follow one specific person for information about your game? And it felt like you were legitimately selling yourself to these known people for that, top level shill from, Justin Wong, Flo, who else was it? We had, I think it was Sherry, I think.
No, it
Um,
wasn't Sherry, it was.
Yeah, who was it? It was Flo,
It was a
Justin
friend.
Wong.
It was a French streamer. That,
Kayane?
Yeah, Kayane.
Kayane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kayane.
it was Kayane. I understand they're all well-known, like super top tier, like either player, like FGC personality. But what reason do those people who have never been affiliated with Cygames or ArcSys have anything to do with releasing information on a game that has yet to even have a beta?
Yeah.
That was the most unnatural thing I've ever felt, and it literally, to me, felt very unwelcome. At least to me, because like I'm from a business management major. I have, so like it felt very awkward to me at the very least.
I see what you're saying with it, and I think maybe the application of what they were trying to do was maybe what felt unnatural with it. But when you look at it and you put it on paper, this is a fighting game, and you want to appeal to fighting game players with this product. And if you're a fighting game player, you know who Justin Wong is. If you're a fighting game player, you know who Spooky is because that was one of the first streamers for FGC content. So if that's the audience that you're wanting to target as far as your promotion is concerned, those are the outlets that you use as far as that goes. Now, again, I think what you're hitting on is how out of the blue and the application it was, no pun intended, blue, but how it had that forced nature as far as its application goes. But overall, if that's the audience you're wanting to target, then those are the names you're going to use to get your product out there, especially like you just said, if it's not a known product to the majority of them, those are the names you kind of got to go with as far as that goes.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I see what you mean as far as how it was kind of weird. And can we all put some petition out or say something along the lines of, look, can we stop with the 5 to 10 second trailers? I mean, can we seriously stop with that? You're not showing anything.
They do way more harm than good, I feel like.
It is the most terrible marketing promotional aspect I've ever seen in my life. What
really
good comes out of a 5-second teaser of Catalina doing a basic combo into super? Like, what gain does that have? To me, I think that's the most frustrating aspect of it. And it's not just what they've done with Granblue, but also, what Arc System has done with Dragon Ball as well, with the 20-25 second trailers, with the new characters come out with that. Now, I've said before, Arc Systems maybe just going with info that's being provided to them when they're putting out this content or whatever. Maybe they're taking instruction from Bandai Namco or Cygames or whatever the case may be with that. I don't know. But what I do know is the 5 to 10 second teasers have got to go. No one's learning a thing about your product when it comes to those type of trailers. They are absolutely annoying, and it drives me crazy whenever I see that. And I know for a fact I'm not the only one that does feel that way when it comes to those trailers.
Not at all. Not at all. And especially, like, You would think even like how they did cross tag was even like at least a little bit better, where they had at least some small breakdowns that kind of gave you a little bit of ideas. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking like how they did, Samurai Showdown. Their trailers were pretty good. Or even like just give us like full-on character breakdowns. There's no harm in like let us know what are these normals, what are these special moves, and
Like,
how do
yeah.
we do them.
It gives you a better idea of what to expect
Right.
with your
Exactly.
game, and I think that's much more appeasing to the people you're trying to get to buy your product. I'm not saying be completely transparent. Obviously, you want to leave a couple surprises here and there, and you want to leave some things for people to discover for themselves and everything. That's the fun of playing these type of games. But for God's sake, I mean, give me the whole freaking steak, not just like a sample of it.
Give me at least half the steak.
Yeah,
They don't even give you,
exactly.
like,
I
a
mean,
quarter.
let me have more than just a bite. Let me,
Right.
have like an actual sample piece to be able to have an idea.
Can I ask a
like-
quick question to Sol though?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you said that the character trailer from Flo, Justin, Spooky were kind of like unnatural. If
Yeah.
it was someone, say like Ubonic or Coefficient or someone that is known in the anime fighting games, would your perspective be different?
So the biggest thing that I have is it does personally. I don't feel like either streamers or players should have shown it. The game had little to no information, so I think that kind of thing should have come from the developer itself. I would have been completely fine with it had the developer had already put out information on the game, information on the characters, like basic information. But you're leaving it up to the shilling of high known names to still throw out your character trailers. None of those characters we had a video like that. We didn't have any kind of information on them other than what we saw in the trailers. So the biggest issue that I have is I don't think any name should have posted those trailers or shown them off aside from the developer, primarily because of the fact that the game has no information out right now. That should have been posted out by either Science Games or ArcSys themselves.
I see what you
Once
mean
it-
there.
once
I
other
can come with you on that.
information came out, yeah. So I mean, that's like saying, let's put it this way, Ryan. Let's say you and I are coming out with the game, right? And we're we're a part of like this well-known, developer, game developer, and we leave it out. Let's say to fuck it, let's do Justin Wong. We'll do Sherry. We'll do who else can I put? We have Sherry, who's a model and an FGC personality. We have Justin Wong, who's a high-level player. And let's go.
Flo.
Let's
Give it to
do
Flo.
Flo because he's a streamer, a well-known streamer.
Mhm.
Why are you leaving it up to an FGC model and a player, a high-level player, and a high-level streamer? People who are a part of 3 different factions of the FGC for a game that has little to no information ever released as of that time. Why would I leave it to those people to promote my game when I, as a company, have yet to even promote my own game?
Well, and that's why I said the application of how they did it is
Yeah.
probably the biggest concern there, because if there was actual information that they provided as well with it, that let's say Side Games supplied them with that, like maybe Side Games gave them a video to display before they showed this trailer or whatever that had that more information that you're looking at and everything, right? As far as
Yeah.
like what you're wanting at, then maybe that would be passable. If it was maybe Justin Wong conducting an interview with the battle director of Side Games or stuff along those lines, so those type of content ideas that you go with that, I think those are much better applications, and those would be much more acceptable than what goes with that.
That's where they went in a wrong path.
Right. And I think that's why I said like the application aspect of it is probably the more concerning thing of how they did this than, like I said, on paper, that's what you want to do. You want to have big names promoting your item. Gatorade, having Michael Jordan talk about, Gatorade, things along those lines. People know who that is. So you want them to promote that product. But it's also the deal where again, they had info for him to be able to promote said product. These guys, unfortunately, did not have that info. They were just showing a 5 to 10 second trailer, and it's just like, okay, what do you do with that?
I think the best thing that
exactly.
they could have really done was like, of course, like what Sol was saying, like they could have released the trailers themselves and gave like a little bit more information. But what you kind of have them do, as far as like streamers and stuff goes, is sort of bring them in and let them do character breakdowns. So you look at like what Maximilian did for Dragon Ball, or you look at like what some people did with like Mortal Kombat, where they had like the players come in, they have them, get their own feed to put on their own channels to do like full-on character breakdowns for their fan base.
Right.
So that would have been a way more effective use of Justin's time.
Agreed.
He has huge outreach, right? So it's like if he was able to sit down and be like, "Yo, let me tell you why Gran is the tightest," right? And then put out his silly little tier list, and then it'll have like 1 billion, and we have a bunch more sales in games, right?
Yeah.
Or Flo's little style of how he breaks down characters and how he would. He was playing Fairy, if I remember right, or something like that. And, like, just think about his expressions doing a character breakdown for Fairy would have like been gold.
Exactly,
so I think that would have been a much more smarter use of their time. So I agree with you, actually. Now that you sort of broke that down, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, like, I think that's what Sol was trying to say is like the application of how they did it was just it was not good as far as I go, and I definitely agree with him on that front when it comes to that. And T-Nerd said the perfect thing here. The show match that was played between Daigo and Fudo.
Yeah,
that's the way you want to promote it.
That was one of the best marketing.
That was fun.
It really was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
it was people who were affiliated with Side Games alone. Like they're sponsored by Side Games, but at the same time, like they're players, well-known, established players that are not only affiliated with them but have done marketing and promotions for that company before. And the fact that they had them trying out the game, like the build that we all had, and showing each character, like the fact that they didn't allow mirror matches, it was each of them having characters, was one of the most refreshing things in terms of marketing that I've seen, especially for fighting games.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope that aspect of it, they can tighten that part up a bit more. But yeah, it's funny to see like how just vastly different some developers do their marketing when it comes to their product compared to others. It's literally night and day. It's just it's crazy, mind-boggling to be honest. So
it really is.
Yeah, it's just, and like I said, as someone with a promotions background, working in sports media and stuff like that, and I know Sol, you brought up the business management aspect of it. They need to get us, Sol. That's what it comes down to. I think that's what it's understanding. They need to relate to us more. We can put them in the right direction.
Yeah, hire YouTube for trailers. Hire me for Pro Tours.
Yeah.
Look, man, when
Just let me play the video game.
Bro, when we had Combo Breaker last year, when BB Tag first came out, I was working with ArcSys to make Combo Breaker BB Tag tournament happen.
Right.
And I was like, yo, like y'all should like hook it up. Like you guys could like let me in, like let me help out or something. But I've always wanted to work for like a games development, like a games development company for esports, because like that's a field that I want to get into. Like I have my bachelor's in business management and video game design, so like I want to like kind of like nudge my way into it, but it's kind of hard because like I don't have any of the connections for it. But
right.
I would love to like get into that, because like the thing is, you can have different points of view that comes from a player, a different point of view that comes from a streamer, different points of view from a marketer, different points of view from, let's say, a developer. So like everybody has different points of views on how to make a game, or how to like kind of like promote it in a sense. So having different people that gives you different I guess like points of view from it would benefit a company very much, because you have what each different person would expect or would want from kind of like a marketing or promotion for either a game or for like a brand. So it'd be very, very cool, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So all right, well, I think we're about ready to start wrapping up this edition of the GranCast. This is the episode 2 of GranCast. We do appreciate you guys coming through and watching. Of course, I am RCB. joined by Zenosuke, Bloo, and Sol. Sentenchi, unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us tonight because of some things he's having to do, but hopefully he'll be able to join us for when we do the third episode coming up soon as well. With that said, though, so now we're looking ahead to, again, we do know that they're going to be at Anime Expo. That's going to be the next thing, which, Zen, 2 weeks away, man. You ready?
Oh, no, not at all.
I'm be honest with you guys, I'm super close to just buying a ticket to go. Like,
Are you really?
I spoke to my boyfriend about it, and like I kind of like shilled it really hard because I love the series. I love Granblue Plus. It's like Anime Expo. I've never been to one before.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about going, but the issue is I gotta find someone that has a room. I may speak to one of my friends that's going. So if they have room, I'm like 100% going.
I mean, I can always use another body in my room to bring down the cost, you know.
Sold. There you go, man. There you go. You got the offer. The offer's there, man.
That's another figure I can buy.
When's Anime Expo again?
It's July 4th to the 7th.
Yeah.
My hotel is from July 2nd to the 7th, so. Yeah, talk to me.
I'm definitely. Fuck, damn it! I'm probably gonna go now.
We have a good time out there. Like every year, I always try to bring someone who hasn't gone before, and we always have a good time.
Yeah,
I've
dude.
never been to Anime Expo.
If you want to come,
Blue's wanting to go.
Blue to something that's not in the self.
Let's go, Blue. Come on. I book this every year.
And look, both Bloo and Sol are travel size. So I mean.
Well, no, I'm 5'6". I can fit in the suitcase. I'm very compact, all right.
I'm not.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
Look at me in my grand outfit and just see me being like, oh.
The thing with Sol though is, as soon as he sees the Luane brothers cosplayers though, he's gonna be gone the rest of the day. You're not gonna find him.
If I disappear, you know where I'm at.
Yeah.
Got it.
Just look for. I'm gonna be blasting Luane theme behind them all day. I'm gonna be rapping that song super hard.
Oh
I'm gonna be like,
gosh.
yo, can I get a picture with you people? Like, come on, please. Like, I love you. I promise you, I would chill the living shit out of Luane the moment I see him.
What happened like at the start of the convention, start of Anime Expo, is just the Lane brothers at the entrance being like, "Hi, you will never."
I'd cry. I'd cry.
It wouldn't surprise me. They always do a big entrant like opening ceremony, so I wouldn't be surprised at that.
Ah,
I promise you,
man.
if there's a Luane like poster or like the standees, I swear to God, I'm robbing one. Like I would probably rob the shit out of it.
It's funny you mention that.
Go, I'll keep a lookout for you.
Yo, I got you.
We were Zen and I were both trying to get one of our guys that was out there at E3 to try to find a way to get the Catalina standee, but that didn't work out too well.
Yeah,
they actually do. They give them out, especially when they're done with them. Like it happened at what tournament did I go to that I had it? I think it was
Frosty?
Oh, hey, what is that? Oh,
Some feedback.
It wasn't Frosty's. It was I believe it was. No, it wasn't
Showdown?
No, damn it. They had like the Arxis. It was like an Arxis lounge that they had there.
Yeah, it was Texas Showdown.
Was it? No, I didn't go to Texas Showdown.
It was either that or Frosty.
Yeah, because we were at Frosty.
No, it was Frosty's. Yeah, it was Frosty's. I remember. It was Frosty's.
Yeah, those are the only two in the lounge.
Yeah, they had what were the standees that they had there for BB Tag?
It was Ruby.
Yeah, it was Ruby and Narakami, I think. No, Ruby Ragna. Ruby Ragna.
I was
and the Ruby.
close to robbing that Ruby.
Yeah, and the Ruby got swiped.
Yeah, they gave the Ruby away when they were having like a little thing there. They gave away Ruby. I was mad. I was super mad.
I actually do remember that when I was up there. Yeah, you were trying to fiend for that one pretty hard. They also had
a lot of the times at Anime Expo they'll auction them off at the end.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah. I mean, they go for a pretty penny. Like you're gonna have to fight for it.
Ah, man, I'm so mad. I wanted to go this year.
At this point, I made of money. I will
do it. If you're one for Lorraine, I don't think you understand that for Soul, money's not an option anymore.
Look, you have no idea. I actually have
this is
Luane posters, and I have a lot of like Granblue stuff. So like, I have them all in storage, but I have them. And if I get that standee, I swear to God, my game room is going to be the first thing you see, that Lowain poster. I promise you.
It would be like, welcome to the new episode of GranCast. He's just holding up the poster while you're introducing everybody.
You're
No,
gonna
he's not even gonna hold. He's not even gonna hold it
up.
up. It's just gonna be Lowain, like right there in the
Yeah.
frame. That's
My,
it.
my new picture for my camera is gonna be Lowain. I'm not even gonna show my camera. It's literally just that character.
Oh, I love it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wish I can. I wish I was able to go this year, but unfortunately, things did not line up in the cards for me to be able to go. So that'll always be next year, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So try to make it happen next year. Hopefully, things will be in a much more stable state for me personally than they are now.
Yeah.
So where I can be able to make that kind of trip. So
We're gonna get you out there next year.
yeah,
Maybe
we're gonna try.
Maybe I can actually leave the South.
That's right. You've always just been in the South, like Florida and Georgia. That's it, right?
That's literally been my entire life.
Oh, we're gonna
Oh,
get
wow.
you out next year too.
Well, more specifically Georgia. The only times I go to Florida for tournaments, and the same with like South Carolina, Alabama.
Ah, okay. All right, that
You
makes
just gotta
sense.
come over and play BB tag. Just come through.
This is true.
My house.
Wait, I have work this weekend.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah,
Let me know when you're off one weekend and just come through.
yeah.
I
Well,
wish I can go up there, except I live in South Florida.
yeah. Florida's a big state.
I mean, if you come through, then you can crash if you want. Like it's.
My man, when I tell you that the 5-hour drive from Kendall all the way up there is the most horrendous thing I've ever done.
It's rough.
The worst.
It's
the
rough.
worst.
It's comparable to like when I lived in when I used to live in Pensacola, and having to go down I-10 to Jacksonville in that
Oh, God.
5.5 6 hours, and you're going into a different time zone because everything west of Tallahassee is on Central Time Zone. That's
That's even
brutal.
worse.
Yeah, it's brutal. So,
I
but
think it's bad for South Florida people that want to travel up north, primarily because a lot of the people from down south either don't have a car or don't like traveling.
mhm.
Yeah,
So, like,
that sounds right.
The reason I would love going up there, especially like for tournaments and stuff. Especially when Granblue comes out, you're probably gonna see me every single local.
Yeah.
Yo,
Um,
come
because
through.
Yeah, no, for sure, I would
Please.
miss it. But the problem is that South Florida doesn't really like traveling that much, and nobody wants to make that drive alone.
Yeah,
I feel you.
it's
So,
brutal.
Yeah, it prevents people from South Florida to travel a lot because mostly like, people will carpool. And if nobody wants to make that drive, then those people that were gonna carpool end up not going.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
I understand that.
All right, guys. Well, before we wrap things up, I do want you guys to kind of promote yourselves a little bit here before we wrap things up. So, especially with what you got going with the Grand Archives, which we'll hit on that a little bit later. Well, we'll save that for kind of like the end as we're wrapping things up here. But Zenosuke, where can
Hi.
people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Zenosuke. I also do podcasting, so I have 2 podcasts that go live. We have a JSB TechCast where we talk about technology that goes up tomorrow. You can find that on like Spotify, Google, Apple. We also do a video game podcast that goes up on Friday called JSB Gamescast, so you can check that out too. We did a E3 recap last week, and we got a fun show coming up for this week. So
Yep.
give us a listen.
Yep. Looking forward to that. Blue, what about you, my man?
All right, so my name's Blue. I do various stuff. I work with the Cross Academy for BlazBlue Cross Tab Out. I work for One Frame Link, which is a fighting game statistics organization. And I also run the AFCC News Twitter account that keeps track of all the different types of anime fighting games, such as Granblue Fantasy, BlazBlue Cross Tab Out, Dragon Fighter. We had a very busy news day today, and it's getting worse.
There-
Thank you for your hard work. You are doing
Yes,
God's work.
you are doing
Appreciate
yeoman's
it.
work, Blue. You stay incredibly busy with that stuff, and I know you keep up with all the tour news and everything along those lines and everything. You stay
I really
busy.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
You literally,
The Anime FGC
would
Twitter?
you say the say again? So
The Anime FGC Twitter, right? Sorry, I just
Yeah.
like my Discord kind of like crapped itself. So I
Yep.
Yeah,
Anime
it's all.
It's me and Gibbs.
yeah.
Gotcha, yeah.
And thank you, Ryan, for reminding me about the World Tours because I still got to release the leaderboard on that account.
Oh no. Yeah. Well, Oh, go
I
ahead.
guys think Granblue's gonna get one.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Most likely,
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely they will.
It will have a tour, but we can save this for next week. But I don't
Yeah.
think it will be off of Arthas. That's
All right.
No.
All right, and then Soul, quickly talk about Grand Archives again that you got coming up here.
Oh yeah, so I do have some good news. For
We like good news.
So for for Grand Archive, we have officially made it a concrete plan for how we're going to be running the SSR series. Basically, we are going to start on the second week of the game's release. We already have our point system based, and we have our the timestamp. I'm sorry, the dates of our seasons. Basically, people are going to be fighting for each tournament. They're going to be acquiring points just for registering. They're going to be acquiring points based on how well they do. If they're top 8, if they win. We already have our prizes set, and we are currently working with a sponsor. So that way, once the season's over and we host our top 24 tournament, the player that wins is going to be I believe top 4 is going to be given a pop bonus, and the winner of that is going to be sent to a major with all expenses paid.
Nice.
Other than that, we are also going to implement some other changes to the SSR that's going to kind of change the way that the format is going to be done online.
Gotcha. We'll be looking forward to that info, and obviously that will keep going, especially being formulated and everything up until the release of the game, and then go from there. And poor Soul, he has had all kinds of issues, unfortunately. But hey, it is.
That's a signal.
It is. It'd be like that. So, but that is the end of the GranCast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We'll be returning sometime next week for episode 3 of GranCast. So, for Soul, who has been on malfunction lately, for Blue, and for Zenosuke, I'm RCB. And we will see you guys next time for episode 3 of GranCast. Until then, take care.
Bye.
Later.
I cry.